So last time in my ideal Fallout game, I started talking about having multiple different playable races, and each of these races, even though technically speaking they aren't races, they're just all different types of afflicted human beings, but we're going to treat them as races, with sub-races, if you will. So I started with humans. So, humans would have something like, okay, these are humans, and humans can be, you have various sub-races, which basically determine what your starting skills are going to be, how those starting skills are going to be, how can I put this, expressed, that type of thing. So, for example, let's say you are you're essentially a human, okay? Every other Fallout game, you've been a human. But then you can choose, from being a human, you can choose to be a ex-settler. You can choose to be a trader. You can choose to be a citizen of the NCR, etc., etc. You can choose to be a tribal. You can choose to be a ganger, a Great Khan ganger, or a raider ganger, and these would basically give you certain abilities. Like, if you choose to be a Great Khan ganger, the Great Khans do a lot of drugs, like an insane amount of drugs. So, because you do an insane amount of drugs, you have high drug resistance. So it's harder for your character to get, well, essentially speaking, fucked up, okay? Like that type of thing. Or if you're an NCR citizen, your persuasion might be higher because you have to talk with people. You're in a society, a functioning society, so like you'll be good at talking to people. If you're a settler, you're on your own all the time, so you wouldn't be as good as at communication. Small things like that. So the central conceit, opening of the game when you create your character, is that you have this exposition about these scientists who wanted to create an alternative to Vault Tech and what they were planning on doing to quote-unquote save humanity, and their fucked up experiments they were planning on doing to people. And their perimeter is breached, and they find someone entering the perimeter of one of their main facility, Arc 1. And it says they find a human, and that's how you create your character. Or they find a mutant, like a super mutant, and you can choose to be one of the like 4 different types of super mutants. You can be a Gen 1 super mutant, kind of like Neil from Fallout 2 and Fallout New Vegas. You can be a Gen 2 super mutant, kind of like those mutants from Fallout 3 and Fallout 4. You can be a Nightkin, or you can be a Gen 3 super mutant, which is, Fallout, the fucked up Fallout mutants from Fallout 4. So the big thing about these characters, the big thing about playing as a super mutant is that super mutants get enhanced stats, enhanced physical strength, enhanced whatever. Depending on which generation they are and what they are, they get a special innate ability on top of that. Like the Nightkin can use stealth boys, and they can stay stealthed like 3 times longer than a normal stealth boy usage. And once they reach a certain level, they gain the innate ability to go stealth anyway. But here's the downside: if a stealth boy, if a Nightkin doesn't have a certain procedure done, they will start to go crazy. So their intellect will go down as they use this, unless they have this procedure done. So that's kind of like the caveat for the whole thing. It's like, well, you know, yeah, you can turn invisible, but you also go fucking crazy. If you play as a Gen 1 super mutant like Neil, things go a little bit differently. Alright? For example, a Gen 1 super mutant like Neil is gonna is gonna get a boost to their intellect and their physical strength, but not as big as a Gen 3 or a Gen 4 or a Nightkin. But they're not gonna go. Most of the Gen 1 super mutants aren't gonna go crazy. They're more stable mutation. Gen 2s get greater boosts, but their mutation isn't quite as stable, which is why you wind up with behemoths and that type of thing. With Gen 2, Gen 3s, Gen 4s, they're all kind of fucked up, except for the Gen 1s. Basically, once you go beyond the basic human thing, the scientists who exist in this thing will fix a problem for that mutant. So, you know, if you choose to be a Gen 1, Gen 2, Gen 3, Nightkin, Gen 4 mutant, they're like, well, we realize that you guys are neutered even though you're not supposed to. We can fix that for you so that you can actually breed true. Which completely takes the heart out of being a super, takes the whole impetus that super mutants have to basically go around just murdering dunking people into vats of FEV fluid in order to create more super mutants. With them being able to breed with one another, male and female mutants, basically, this is a major thing that changes up how they feel. But they only have enough technology to help you out. So the impetus for a super mutant to help these people out is that, you know, if you go out and find our MacGuffin that this, you know, mole, this traitor has stolen from us to help us, you know, restart our experiments, we can not only help repair the wasteland, we can actually help your people not become such a menace and become a functional society. And so that's your motivation for that particular character. So you have the overall motivation of, we've got to do this, but then you have the other motivation of, okay, we got to find this shit over here. So, you know, that's your motivation. For another character, you know, for another thing, it's like, well, you can also be a ghoul, right? And ghouls, their big thing is that, well, you know, they absorb radiation to heal themselves, both feral ghouls and normal ghouls. Now, as a ghoul, ghouls live a very long time for some reason. But, you know, here's the thing. They absorb radiation in order to heal themselves, and it also sustains them. But here's the thing. The more radiation a ghoul absorbs, the higher chance they have of going feral. So when they find your character, whether you choose to be a feral ghoul or non-feral ghoul, you've been exposed to a lot of radiation, you're going feral. They capture you and basically do a procedure that makes you go unferal. They give you a Pip-Boy after this procedure that basically, you know, dosing yourself with radiation can actually be used to make yourself go feral. So the equivalent of hulking out, making you better at fighting in hand-to-hand combat. And you can diagnose yourself, you can dose yourself with this cocktail of drugs that basically reverses the effect of you going feral. So it becomes a gameplay mechanic for that particular race, if you will. Hell, you can also become a glowing one, kind of like Jason Bright in Fallout New Vegas. So you've got three different things. You have three different sub-races you can choose from for that particular like template. I'm thinking the next character race you could choose is maybe I'm thinking perhaps, and this is just me thinking, maybe Synthoid. Like maybe they find your body and it's too badly damaged, and they're like, well, shit, we're gonna have to make you into a. We had to upload your body into a synthetic android body. So basically, you're a synth, but not like from the Institute. And you know you're a synth. Like, okay, I used to be human, now I have a synth body, and you're like, you know, I don't know where to come from here. I'm no longer human. You know, the plight is no longer being human. And what does that, like, what does being human mean? Does it mean having an organic body? You know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's your character's big thing. You know, this is more of a run for people who want a conflicted character, because you're like, these people turned me into saved my life, but they turned me, instead of healing me, they turned me into a synthoid. What the fuck's up with that? You can be a synthoid or a cyborg, so they just replace certain body parts of you. Now, if you become a cyborg, the caveat is you get boosted starting stats. Like if you have a cybernetic eye, you have better perception. But you can never raise your special stats through just leveling up. You have to, in order for you to make them higher, you have to have a cybernetic implant. And you also get a penalty to getting experience. That's right. Instead of, you know, the perk system, which was stupid in Fallout 4. In this game, you level up by you gain experience by doing actions, in-game actions, quests, and you know, skills, and you get experience for that. The higher the difficulty check, for the skill or the quest, the more difficult it is. So that being said, that was number 3. The final race. The final race I'm going with is just the mutant. The mutant is a race that, unlike super mutants and ghouls, the mutants are just someone who has some type of innate special ability from years of being exposed to radiation and FEV and stuff like that. Mutants are, for lack of a better word, you know, there's 2 types of mutants. There's you can choose to be a superficial mutant or a internal mutant. Superficial mutants are people who, like, you might have enhanced physical strength, or your skin looks like scales to protect you from physical damage. Superficial mutants can spontaneously mutate, but I mean, you know, they get a boost to surviving out in the wilderness, but normal people will not accept them readily. That's the big caveat for those types of mutants. Internal mutants can hide, can go into the populace, but because they have an internal mutation, their physical stats take a hit. So they're like, well, I have psychic abilities which enable me to talk to people and figure out what they're going to do and what their temperament is. But I'm physically, like, if I hit you with this lead pipe, it's not going to do that much damage. So there's like a caveat for each of the races. Now, with that being said, I'll go into my overall story conflict and how I'd like to handle that in part 3 of my ideal Fallout game.